Hi everyone, it's Chaitni. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this week's video, I'll be discussing some ways to overcome a negative thought pattern. So if you're prone to a lot of negativity, concerns, worries, and you feel like you default to negative thoughts, then this video is definitely for you. So with all this negativity, it's very natural to feel drained, to feel tired, to feel exhausted. Basically, that negativity or that hopelessness, that attitude of doom and gloom, it sucks all the energy out of you. And it could lead to making you feel unproductive. It can lead to making you feel stuck. It can really take away from being present and enjoying the current moment. So that is why I'll be sharing 5 tips that can really help you start to minimize that negativity and eventually overcome it. So it's not a change that you will detect overnight, but start to incorporate some of these tips and you are bound to see a difference. So tip number 1 is listen to yourself. We tend to function on autopilot. We go from one task to another without even paying attention to the things that we're telling ourselves. So pay attention to the thoughts in your head. And if you start to notice that you're going down that negative path, then it's time to really accept and acknowledge those thoughts. The worst thing you can do is run away from them, escape them, distract yourself from them, numb them in unhealthy ways. Because what that's going to do is, in the moment it'll be a temporary fix and you will be able to break the thought pattern, but these negative thoughts will come back at some point. So if you really want to break the habit, if you really want to break the cycle, you have to just accept and acknowledge the presence of these thoughts in your head and your heart. So it's very important to start listening to yourself and start listening to what you're telling yourself. Then tip number 2 is challenge these very thoughts. So when I say accept and acknowledge, I don't mean that you just accept them and let them sit and let them fester. No, obviously first you need to understand that they exist within you, but the second step is start to logically question these thoughts. So what is your pattern? Are you somebody who catastrophizes? Are you somebody who just automatically jumps to the worst case scenario? Are you somebody who is being realistic? What is it? What kind of negativity is it? Start to ask yourself these questions and do it logically. Don't involve any kind of judgment. Stay away from your fears. Set all of that aside and just ask yourself, is this true? Is this really what's going to happen? Is this what happens every single time? Pretend you're having a loving conversation with a dear friend of yours who is unreasonably worrying about something that hasn't even happened. What are the words that you would use to question her way of thinking? And that's exactly the language that you need to use with yourself. So be mindful of that. Start to ask yourself some of these questions. And as I said, it's very important to leave that judgment aside, leave your fears aside. Just do this from a place of love and from a place of concern. Now, tip number 3 is surround yourself with authentic people. So, in our search for positive vibes, sometimes we surround ourselves with people who aren't necessarily genuine. And a lot of the positivity that they have isn't genuine. It tends to be one where they're completely disconnected from reality. Another set of people that you want to steer clear of are people who just complain and do nothing about their complaints. These are the negative Nancys that can just drag you down that rabbit hole in a heartbeat. So try and stay away from these people. The people you really want in your inner circle are folks that are vulnerable, that are going to really question your negativity, but again, come from a place of logic and thought, not from a place of judgment and criticism. These are people who have complaints, who have difficulties, but are leading by example and showing you how they get back up every time and how they reframe their thoughts every time. They really show you how to live that life that you want to live. They're there to support you, they're there to question you, and they're there to help you get back up. So these are the kind of people that you really want to surround yourself with. Tip number 4 is really understanding the difference between negativity and critical thinking. So there are some decisions in our lives, that are big. They require a significant thought process. You need to go through the pros and cons. You need to figure out the advantages and disadvantages to those decisions. They could be making a huge investment, buying a home, or even relocating to a place within your city, or just moving. All of these are life-altering events, and you do need to take the time to make the best possible decision that you can make in that moment. So that is not being negative. When you list out the cons in this exercise, when you look at some of the disadvantages, that's not being negative. That's being a critical thinker. So just to give you an example, in terms of your health, if you're somebody who tends to have junk food or quite a bit of processed food, and you've noticed that that is leading to weight gain instead of weight loss, then here are 2 ways to approach that. So one of the ways is telling yourself that you can never lose the extra weight. You can never lose the extra pounds. This is how you're going to be, and this is how it is. So that is an example of a negative thought pattern. On the flip side, if you're thinking about it critically, you would say, if I cut back on my processed food, if I minimize the junk food, if I develop better eating habits, if I start to live my life mindfully, I can and will lose weight. So it's not fake positivity. It's really being logical, and it's really having a clear understanding of what needs to happen if you want to see that change in yourself. And then tip number 5 is keep your happiness list handy. So this list is pretty much your accomplishments, your wins, everything that you've overcome, your breakthroughs, proud moments, your strengths, everything good, everything that you're grateful for, everything that's good in your life. You just need to list it out. It could be quick bullet points. You don't need to write paragraphs about any of this. And this is a list that you keep easily accessible. So whether it's in your wallet or your purse or back pocket, wherever it is, because if you're starting to have some negative thoughts while you're sitting in traffic or while you're working on a project late at night, I want you to be able to remember that you have this list and it's handy, and reach for it immediately. Because what this list is, it's a list of facts. It's what you have done, what you have accomplished. It's all the good. It's the truth. So when you start to have those negative thoughts, this is one way. It's basically a hard copy, a way to visually see how you have dealt with these negative circumstances or difficult circumstances in the past. So it really questions and challenges your negativity. It's the truth. And that's why it's important to have a visual copy of it instead of just having everything in your head, and making sure that it's handy and you can quickly read it or you can quickly access it when you need it. So just to wrap it up, the 5 tips are, listen to yourself, challenge your thoughts, know the difference between negativity and critical thinking, surround yourself with authentic people, and keep your happiness list handy. So negativity in general is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's a survival tactic. Sometimes having that negative feeling or not good feeling about something can save you from some really difficult times or difficult decisions that you're about to make. But when it starts to take over your life, and when it becomes the default thought pattern in your life, and that final decision that you make is based on those negative thoughts, then it's time to intervene and start to eradicate this habit. It's time to really minimize and overcome this outlook of doom and gloom, of hopelessness, of cynicism. It doesn't serve you well. It really holds you back and takes away from the person that you can be. As a bonus tip, I just want to share something. So the next time you're experiencing a negative moment, or you're going through a tough time, or dealing with a difficult person, Remind yourself that I know this is hard, I know it's difficult, but I can do it. I've done hard things before, so I can do this, and everything is going to be okay. You know, these words may just sound like BS initially, something that you're force feeding yourself, but eventually, as you start to say these mantras or these affirmations on a frequent basis, you will start to believe them. And that is exactly what you need when you're trying to deal with negativity. You're trying to develop a positive mindset and reframe that negativity into positivity. And that's really possible when you start to change your mindset. So when you start to believe in yourself, when you don't really feed that self-doubt or that inner critic, or the low confidence or the fears, and you just push through them, that is when that negativity is automatically going to start to subside, and it's no longer going to be your default mechanism to cope with things that don't happen according to plan. So I hope you found that helpful. As I said, if you're experiencing any kind of negative thinking, negative thought patterns, these are some tips that you can slowly start to incorporate. Take it one step at a time. Nothing happens overnight. The first thing is just self-awareness. Start to figure out what you're telling yourself and what your mind is telling itself. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about what I do and how I help my clients as a mindset and nutrition coach, please check out my website. It's www.imperfectbodies.com. I will see you here next week. In the meantime, I hope you have a spectacular week. Take care.